Yo, what's happening? Back at it again. You know exactly what it is. Corey TheGreat, aka Poseidon Soundz, Downer Mob, all that. You know what it is. So I'm back again today. I'm actually glad to tell you guys that I finally got the Rode mic. So the audio from the actual camera is gonna sound a lot better now. Borrowed it from my friend, so we'll see how long, until he actually wants it back. But anyway, we good for now. Today's vlog, I'm gonna be talking about the gear that I use in my recording and mixing process. I'm gonna tell you all the gear that I use, when I bought it, what step of my journey I bought it, what I bought it specifically for, my review on it, and basically just showing you how I use it, what it's used for, and that's gonna be today's vlog. So yeah, we're getting back at it. I told you guys, I promised you guys a leveling tutorial, and that's coming soon. I just got to get some stuff worked out because my MacBook is from 2015 and I updated the processor when I first got it. I got the upgraded processor, but it's 2019 now, and me trying to run all the programs while actually making the leveling tutorial, it keeps crashing. So that's gonna be on this one next. But anyway, never mind all that. Please go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification bell so that every time I drop a video, you are informed about it. And yeah, let's get me to 1,000 subscribers, because I'm trying to get paid straight up. I need to make some money off of these ad revenues, trying to put some money in my pocket from this YouTube game. But it is a community thing that I am doing it for. But it's also a nice little incentive to get paid from this shit. So go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Poseidon Soundz. All right, let's get straight into it. So this is a Poseidon's lair. That's what I call the home studio setup. Everything is done here. This is the full production studio. We edit videos, mix, record, everything you need right here. So let's talk about the first piece of gear. Everybody wants to know about microphones, right? So let's switch over to my mic. So I'm using the Neumann TLM 103. With the 103, essentially, when I first started making music, all the studios that I went to and I recorded on, I think I recorded probably before I started recording myself, probably mainly at one, but prior to that, I had been to about 3 different music studios. And at that time, everybody was using a TLM 103. And so that was the mic that I only recorded on, so that was the mic I knew. I like it. It does sound kind of bright. It kind of gives your vocals like a certain brightness to it. I've tried like a U87, Neumann U87. That's one of the most popular mics in the world, and it's cool. But to be fair and to be quite honest, it doesn't sound too much different or too far off from a Neumann TLM 103. I mean, if you look at the microphone, like in the response sheet that they give and like the frequencies, it's different, but just most people are not going to be able to tell the difference between a U87 and a TLM 103. I wanted to actually get another one, which was the TLM 102, just to test it out, but I haven't did that yet. But yeah, so that's the mic I'm using, the Neumann TLM 103, and I have this little shield, reflection shield, essentially. Who is this by? This is SE. So this is the SE. Forget what it stands for, but it's the reflection shield. So just to catch any reflections going from the back of the microphone. And this is a cardioid condenser microphone. The Neumann TLM 103 is a cardioid condenser. So that means it requires phantom power from a preamp. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about my monitors. So I am using the Yamaha HS8s. So I decided to go with the Yamahas because, well, one, switch back over. So when I first started off, I had got a pair of Yamaha HS5s, which are the little, the 5-inch speakers, the little subs, and they have the little tweeters over them too. But essentially, my studio setup was at a different location, and so we were just starting off. We had the TLM 103, but we you know, that was our budget at the time. So we copped the HS5s. We heard good reviews about them. And the HS5s were great. They had a good like mid-range response and a good high-end response too. But the low end, you couldn't get like a real translation of the low end and what was happening in the low end frequencies of your mix, essentially, and of like a song. So they're great, and for the time that we needed it, they were perfect for our space and everything. And we were kind of recording in like a very open room at the time, so having on that bass reflecting off the walls and not having it like treated properly. We had a treated booth, but we didn't have a treated monitoring, essentially control room. So it was good for at the time what it was. But then, you know, we outgrew it and we moved on. So now I'm rocking the HS8s, and I love the HS8s. They're just great. They're super flat response. Yeah, the bass is. They offer a sub from Yamaha that you can use with these, but I'm telling you, the bass alone from these, the low end response and the bass from these HS8s are, you get shit rocking. Like they're a nice piece of monitoring equipment, especially for the price. I got a steal on these from Craigslist. Like I don't know how much these retail for. I believe they retail for probably around 500. Well, 400 to 600. Let me just say that. And I got these, I think, for 300 for the pair. I believe it's higher than that. I don't know. I ain't checked on speaker prices, monitor prices in a long time, but I believe they're around the $400 to $600 range. And I got these off of Craigslist, the pair, for $300. So I think it was a steal. Yeah. So on to the next piece of equipment. I have the Impulse 49, just a 49 key keyboard. I use this for my production process. It's great. I have no issues with it. It's just, I basically just use it as a, a MIDI controller. I don't really use too much of the other functions in it, like these faders, sorry. I do use like the mod wheel, the pitch wheel, making my beats and whatnot. It has the pads up here too, which are cool, but I already have an MPC Studio Black up there, as you see, so I don't really use that too much, and I taught myself some scales and how to play the piano a little bit, so that's cool. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Just 49 key MIDI controller keyboard. And then I have the MPC Studio Black. And so for the MPC Studio Black, I bought this it's been almost probably 2 years now since I had the MPC Studio Black. And it was my boy, Frequency Exclusive. He's actually my mixing engineer. Shout out Oscillation Studios. And he was the first person that actually told me that you should start producing. And he's actually the only person that ever helped me with my music career, but that's a whole nother side story. But shout out Oscillation Studios, shout out Frequency Exclusive, and he got me producing. So I like the Studio Black a lot. It's slim, it looks good, it's easy to use once you actually get familiar with the DAW, because to be fair, there are not too many tutorials for beginners on production with the MPC. There is a little bit more now within the last year, but when I first started off, it was like 1 or 2 guys and that was about it. But shout out to those guys on YouTube. I think one guy named is Wolf D or something like that, and they helped me fumble my way through learning how to use the MPC. But it was a challenge. I took it on, and now I'm producing with the MPC and I love it. It's not a standalone unit. It is, you do have to hook it up and use software with it, unlike some of the older MPCs like the Renaissance and whatnot, or the newest one, which is MPC X or the MPC Live. They do have to have the computer with the software, MPC software, to use this. On to the next piece of equipment. This is my MacBook Pro, 2015. It's essentially, it's 2015. I forget how much RAM I have on it. Actually, let me look at I can tell you exactly the stats of it. Excuse my screen, you can tell it's a little bit dirty. My display. Okay, and so this 2015 MacBook Pro, It is a 8 gig processor. Sorry, it has 8 gigs of memory. It is a 3.1 gigahertz Intel Core i7 processor. So the stock 2015, they came with a step below that processor, whatever the one below that is, and I paid for the upgraded processor. I probably should have got more memory because that's what I really needed. But yeah, so that's my computer system, and it's running on El Capitan. I didn't update it. You guys know about, you know, having music production and updating your operating system and how that can fuck up plugins and whatnot. But yeah, El Capitan 2015 MacBook Pro, 8 gigs of memory, 3.1 Intel Core i7 processor. That's it. Okay, next piece of equipment, moving on, we have and yeah, excuse me for all the dust. You know, this equipment just sits here, I gotta dust it. But anyway, I'm using the Apogee Duet 2. That's number 2. And I chose the Duet, actually, first started off using a Focusrite 2i2 at the other studio before I moved everything over here. So essentially, there was nothing wrong with the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. There was nothing wrong with it at all. But I did some research, and I was trying to get a more fuller sound out of my voice, and the Focusrite 2i2 just wasn't doing it for me. And so, of course, there's other ways that you can make up for that, whether that's adding saturation through plugins. But my voice was very bright using in combination my preamp, so the Focusrite and the TLM 107. I was having very bright vocals, and it just wasn't present enough for me. So after moving on to the Focusrite, did some research about the Duet, but I also did some research about preamps and, you know, how actual preamps and the capacitors and basically the internal gear inside of a preamp can add saturation to your voice coming out the preamp. So I did a bunch of research, and then, which I'll tell you about next, what preamp I'm using. And so that led me to getting the Duet 2 because I actually wanted to bypass the internal preamps of my interface. There we go. I wanted to bypass the preamps of my interface. And so essentially what I'm using the Duet 2 for is just as converters. It has a preamp in it, but I'm not using the actual preamp of the Duet 2. I'm using just the converters of the Duet 2. And there are better converters, but I like the slim design, and it's just slim and it looks good. And essentially it's easy to operate. I love the Duet 2. Super easy to operate. And moving on from the Duet 2, why I just use it as a converter is, you guys see it? My Great River preamp. So I'll try to get it on the logo for you if I can. But this is my Great River preamp. Now, I bought this preamp because I thought it was gonna be like the magic bullet to my vocal solution in terms of getting fuller vocals. And now it actually does, right? But when I bought it to bypass the internal preamps of the Duet. And so by using the Duet to bypass this internal preamp and then running I'm running the Great River into the Duet, and then the Duet into the laptop, and then to the DAW. This is a ME1NV. So it's one channel is one in and out. And yeah, I love this preamp. But let me tell you a story about this preamp. So essentially, when I bought it, I thought I was just gonna hook it up, everything was gonna sound good, and I didn't know pretty much enough about gain staging or how to actually operate this. So for a while, I hooked it up, and I was getting like a good sound out of it, but it wasn't too different from the Focusrite. It was sounding a little bit more fuller, but it wasn't like this huge difference what people were talking about, like on online forums and Gear Sluts and whatnot. People were saying this is great, it adds so much color, it can't add so much color. I wasn't getting what they were talking about. So it wasn't until I mixed the song. I wanted to actually do it in a tone that was very low, so I actually cranked up the gain, and then I backed off the output gain a little bit. And when I did that, that's when I finally heard that robust sound of my voice, and I got that full presence. And then I looked it up just because I changed my gain settings, and essentially that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to crank up the gain input, and then you back off the output to add more color to it. So I was, for a long time, over a year, I was not using the full benefits of my preamp because I just didn't know how to use it. I thought I was gonna plug and play and get the sound that I wanted, but I didn't. But you can actually use the controls on this, and it sounds great. I heard it's great on bass, but you can get as much color as you want from this preamp. It's great. I love the Great River preamp. But that's a lesson on buying gear and not necessarily knowing how to use it, or buying it too early for you to be able to take advantage of it, depending on your own personal level of growth and knowledge in your own skill set. And the next piece of equipment I have is the UAD satellite. And for the satellite, it was actually gifted to me, and it was gifted to me before I started mixing. It was right around the time when I was making beats, and I was interested in mixing, but it just seemed super complicated. And granted, it can be, but it was before I pretty much just immersed myself in doing nothing but mixing all day and just sponging everything, mixing everything. So I had a friend, and my friend introduced me to a friend, and dude was super cool. He still is super cool. We were talking about music. He found out I make music. He made music too. He went to a recording school, whatnot. And he seen that I was very passionate about music. And so essentially he gave me the satellite and was like, here, I won this in a contest. I'm not gonna be using it, but I know you be doing your thing, so here you go. So he gave me the satellite. I found out it was, came with a couple of plugins. It was basically a processor for plugins and external processor. I just wasn't into mixing, and I wasn't gonna use it. I actually posted it up on eBay. It just wasn't selling, and so since it wasn't selling, I had a couple of people that wanted to buy it, but the prices wasn't working out what I wanted. So I ended up keeping it. But one day I ended up mixing, first time I think I ended up mixing a beat or something, or I ended up mixing a song, and I started learning about compression and whatnot. And so I found out that, this thing came with a couple of compressors. And so I used it, and I had the Waves version of the compressors. It was actually the 1176 and the LA2A. And I used these, and it just blew my mind about the quality of it and the sound that was coming out from it. So I was actually trying to give this piece of equipment away, but now it is a staple inside of my mixing process. And I have a couple more plugins from UAD because of it. And I'm just, everything happens for a reason. So for some reason I got that, the guy gave me it, and for some reason I couldn't, get rid of it, and it ended up being a staple. And I have alternative plugins instead of the UAD, but I love the UAD plugins, and so they're a staple in my vocal chain now. Yeah. Okay, and so the next piece of equipment, obviously, are my dual monitor setup. So I have one 40-inch 4K that I use primarily for making beats and tracking in Pro Tools. And then I use the one up top for either my mix window in Pro Tools, or I use it for editing with Premiere Pro. So I'll have essentially, I'll have it timed out for me. So essentially I'll have two programs running and then two separate windows. However I choose to arrange it. Sometimes I'll put my MPC up there and I'll produce up top, and I'll have like something that's open, or I'll be producing down low and then like have a video playing up top or something. So I just actually recently got this within, the last 2 weeks, and it's been great. It's been a huge improvement in my workflow, and just being able to move quicker and do things quicker. Last piece of equipment I'm going to be covering today are the Sennheisers, the HD 280 Pro or the Pro HD 280s, whatever they're called. These All right, let me flip back around here. These headphones are great. I love them. They actually, as you can see, you know, they're a little bit worn, but the great thing about these Sennheisers is that you can actually replace most of the parts on here. So these are just, you know, ear cushions, and I'm actually gonna replace those soon. So essentially, I just love them. They sound great across, you know, pretty much the whole spectrum. They are lacking their headphones, so of course they're lacking in the low end, but they're great flat response. You can actually mix in them. I try not to mix in headphones, but when I have the opportunity to, you know, to actually use monitors, but I have no problem mixing the beat inside of my Sennheiser HD 280s. I feel confident that my mix will translate across different sound sources. They're great headphones, never let me down, and yeah, they sound great. And I think that's it. I think we're good on that on the vlog today. So yeah, so TLM 103, Yamaha HS8. I have the Impulse 49. I have the MPC Studio Black. I have the Great River preamp, 2015 MacBook Pro, Apogee Duet 2, Universal Audio satellite, and 2 monitors, 4K, and then the 1080 up top. So yeah, that's essentially my recording, mixing setup, video editing setup. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Moving on to the next vlog, getting back to the actual mixing tutorials. And yeah, thank you for watching. Please, please, please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button. Corey D, the Great, Poseidon Soundz. You know exactly what it is. We out.